Most people don't wake up one day and decide to ruin their lives. Affairs don't start with a grand betrayal. They begin with small, almost imperceptible shifts. Innocent conversations, casual compliments, a lingering glance. But why are married women often the easiest prey? Is it because they lack morals? Number. It's because human nature is wired for temptation. Marriage brings routine, responsibility, and sometimes an emotional void that needs filling. When a woman feels unseen, unappreciated, or unheard, she becomes vulnerable, not to love, but to the idea of being desired again. The truth is, infidelity doesn't begin with action. It begins in the mind. It starts with emotional connections that seem harmless, then slowly erodes the boundaries meant to protect commitment. The danger isn't in what's obvious. It's in what's rationalized. So, what truly leads a married woman down this path? And how does society play a role in this silent epidemic? The answers might be more unsettling than we think. The invisible cracks. Why temptation starts small affairs don't happen overnight. They begin in subtle, unnoticed moments. A seemingly harmless conversation or a fleeting glance. The slow burn of temptation often starts with small cracks that over time widen and create distance in a relationship. These cracks don't appear as grand gestures, but as shifts in emotional needs that are unfulfilled. For many married women who cheat, the driving force isn't necessarily physical satisfaction, but the yearning for attention, validation, and emotional connection. Over time, as they feel neglected or unheard at home, they start seeking solace elsewhere. The most innocuous moments can serve as the initial spark. A simple text from a coworker that makes her heart race, or a conversation where someone listens to her, something her partner may have failed to do in recent years, can trigger a sense of longing and connection. The realization that she hasn't felt desired in years can be a silent but powerful force. Her emotional needs go unmet, creating a vacuum that gradually becomes harder to ignore. She may not consciously seek betrayal, but the emotional distance grows, eroding trust and intimacy without a clear moment of crisis. Relationships don't collapse with a loud bang. They wither away in silence, with gaps in communication and affection widening until they can no longer be overlooked. Ignoring these emotional voids can lead to irreversible damage, as the temptation that started small becomes a significant threat. In the end, the invisible cracks that were once barely noticeable can be the very reason relationships falter. The psychology of justification, how the mind excuses betrayal. Cognitive dissonance, a psychological phenomenon, occurs when a person experiences conflicting beliefs or behaviors, creating discomfort. In the case of betrayal, particularly infidelity, the mind often seeks to resolve this internal conflict by justifying actions that contradict one's morals. This justification allows a person to maintain a positive self-image, even when they act in ways that undermine their own values. Common justifications include minimizing the severity of the actions. For instance, a person might convince themselves it's just harmless fun, to dismiss the betrayal as inconsequential. Alternatively, some may shift the blame to external factors, such as saying, "If my husband treated me better, I wouldn't need this," thus externalizing responsibility. Others may downplay the situation altogether by rationalizing, "I'm not actually cheating, I'm just talking," convincing themselves that their emotional connection doesn't constitute betrayal. The emotional affair is one of the most dangerous forms of infidelity. It begins with deep, intimate conversations that foster a sense of emotional closeness. Over time, this relationship becomes more secretive, creating a hidden bond that may eclipse the connection with the spouse. The secrecy surrounding the affair increases its allure, making it harder for the person involved to disengage. The power of rationalization is key in allowing someone to justify betrayal. Once a person convinces themselves that their actions are excusable, they may continue to rationalize further transgressions. Each justification builds upon the last, creating a slippery slope where boundaries are continually crossed, leading to even greater betrayal. Thus, the mind's ability to excuse behavior becomes a dangerous tool, enabling one to act in ways that ultimately harm those they love. The role of novelty. Why marriage kills. Excitement. The human brain is wired for novelty. Psychologists describe this phenomenon as the Coolidge effect, where repeated exposure to the same partner can lead to a decline in excitement. While marriage provides emotional stability, it also introduces predictability, a factor that often dulls passion over time. Predictability can be comforting, but it can also be the enemy of desire. In the early stages of a relationship, unpredictability fuels attraction, making every interaction feel new and exciting. However, as couples settle into routines, the thrill of discovery fades. Without novelty, what once felt exhilarating becomes mundane. This is especially significant when considering why women crave being chosen again. Attraction isn't just about companionship. It's about the pursuit. Women don't simply want to be with someone, they want to feel desired. If a woman starts to feel invisible in her marriage, she may unconsciously seek validation elsewhere, not necessarily through infidelity, but through experiences that remind her of her desirability. A lack of excitement in a marriage doesn't mean love is lost. It means effort must be made to reintroduce spontaneity. To keep passion alive, couples must actively cultivate mystery and unpredictability. Small surprises, new experiences, and intentional efforts to see each other through fresh eyes can reignite the spark. In the end, novelty isn't about replacing a partner. It's about rediscovering them. The "I deserve this" mindset marks a critical turning point in the aftermath of betrayal. It's where guilt fades away, replaced by a strong sense of entitlement. The person at this stage has convinced themselves that the sacrifices they've made, the pain they've endured, and the emotional toll of the situation somehow justify their actions. They feel they've given up too much for too long and deserve something in return, even if it means crossing boundaries. Dangerous thought patterns start to take root, reinforcing this mindset. The person may tell themselves, "I've given up so much. I deserve to feel good again." This belief stems from a place of emotional deprivation, where they feel that their past sacrifices have earned them a reward, no matter how fleeting or damaging. It also shifts the focus entirely onto themselves, pushing aside any remnants of guilt or empathy for the other person involved. The thought, "He stopped caring about me, so why should I care about him?" further feeds the narrative that their emotional needs now outweigh any concern for others. This rationalization leads to actions that are hard to undo. A seemingly innocent coffee meetup, for instance, turns into a shared moment of vulnerability, a touch that lingers a second too long. These small, seemingly inconsequential acts slowly pave the way for a moment that will forever alter the course of relationships. In the "I deserve this" mindset, the desire to reclaim a sense of control or pleasure becomes stronger than the moral reservations that once held them back. That one night, driven by this thought process, changes everything. The Stoic solution: how to avoid temptation. Seneca's insight, we suffer more in imagination than in reality, holds a deep meaning when dealing with temptation. Often, our minds create exaggerated images of what indulgence or instant gratification might bring. We imagine satisfaction, but fail to recognize the potential consequences. By keeping this perspective, we can train ourselves to question whether our desires are truly worth acting on, or just fleeting illusions created by our imagination. Recognizing the warning signs of temptation is the first step in avoiding its grip. Temptation often creeps in gradually, starting with a sense of entitlement or a desire for something we perceive as rewarding. However, the key is to recognize these urges before they grow too strong. This awareness of our impulses helps us maintain control before we succumb to them. Self-awareness allows us to distinguish between momentary urges and lasting values, ensuring we don't deceive ourselves into thinking that satisfying temporary desires will bring long-term happiness. Stoicism teaches that strength lies in discipline, not indulgence. It's not about denying ourselves pleasure, but rather in understanding the impermanence of such gratification. The true test of character is not when we're surrounded by abundance, but when we're faced with temptation and choose restraint. Instead of seeking external pleasures, we must cultivate an internal sense of satisfaction and peace. In the end, no one believes they'll cross the line into regretful decisions. The most dangerous choices we make are the ones we never anticipate, those that sneak up on us through gradual indulgences. By strengthening our discipline and embracing a Stoic mindset, we can avoid these temptations before it's too late. In many cases, betrayal doesn't stem from sudden malice or drastic actions. Instead, it begins with small compromises, moments where boundaries are tested and trust is gradually eroded. These minor lapses, if unchecked, accumulate over time, creating a shift in the relationship that can ultimately lead to deeper betrayals. Often, the betrayer doesn't set out with harmful intentions, but may become numb to the significance of their actions as they become normalized. Recognizing these early warning signs is crucial, as they can prevent a situation from spiraling into something irreversible. Betrayal, whether personal or professional, often comes in the form of broken promises, lies, or undetected shifts in loyalty that gradually unfold. If we can stay vigilant and attentive to these small signs, whether it's a feeling of unease, unspoken actions, or unexplained changes in behavior, we might protect ourselves from greater harm. So will you recognize the signs before it's too late? Or will you allow the small compromises to snowball into an inevitable betrayal? The choice is yours.